Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about the films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 1982's Purely Physical. Let's try to get the poster art just for that film right there. There it is, Purely Physical. This is part of Vinegar Syndrome's Peakorama Big 2-Unit Show double feature DVD with Cat House Fever. Tonight we're just looking at 1982's Purely Physical. And actually, on the poster, it says, "Surrender yourself to a few hours of forbidden pleasure." There it is, folks. This is from 1982, directed by Chris Warfield, and this is 82 minutes long, and the year is 1982 as well. Restored in 2K from the 35mm negative. Vinegar Syndrome has a ton of these Peakorama Big 2-Unit shows, and I bought this for probably about 15, 16 bucks, something like that. You can buy them on their website. Amazon, eBay, anywhere around there. Let's look at Purely Physical, presented by Essex Pictures, I believe, and this is directed by Chris Warfield. Let's look at some of the screenshots first from the film. We got two right there. That's Jade Wong right there, one of my favorites, and I don't know who she is. I think I've seen her before, but she was great as well. Let's look at this film here. Purely Physical is very similar to me in tone to another film that I reviewed on this YouTube page that was not X-rated like this film is, but called 1972 Paul Bartel's Private Parts. Just in the fact that I love movies that take place at a motel. I love kind of the subgenre of motel movies. You know, everything from, you look at the horror genre, there are tons of motel films, all the way from the original Psycho to Motel Hell. You look at the sex comedy genre, you know, the play motel and things like that. There's so many films, even if they just take place at a motel for a bit. The motel subgenre is definitely one of my favorites. In this film, I would say 99% of the film is done inside of a motel, within the rooms of the motel and also at the front desk of the motel. This chronicles in first person narrative the story of a girl who is a writer, or wants to be a writer, involved in the arts, and needs a job. And her job is being the clerk at a motel, all through the watches of the night, 6 nights a week, to make the money that she needs so that she can eventually, you know, go to school or further her future with writing. Now, this is done in a first-person narrative, and Purely Physical chronicles some of her nights at the motel as the clerk and the people that come in, and her own interactions with those people as well. Let's look at this X-rated picture, Purely Physical, from 1982. First and foremost, let's look at the music for this film. The music for this film, you know, is very unique for an X-rated movie, especially from 1982, I believe, within the 80s. We really have a vibe of romance in the score, a slower vibe, a more emotional vibe, a more seductive vibe of romance and sexual intimacy of sorts, and sexual class, sexual elegance. We have classical music in this film. We have some guitar work in the movie. A heavy emphasis on romantic music, I would say. Music that you could hear by candlelight. Almost dramatic, romantic, classical music as well. We also have some electronic music at times that's quite complex, that has different layers to it. It has kind of a dream-like vibe to it, and kind of weird textures and different layers. Almost at one time I thought it almost sounded tribal or something. Just tinges of it. The best way to summarize the music of this film would really be a dream-like romantic seduction. which is different than does not have the grooves and the jazz and the funk and the rhythm of most X-rated films. So really that dreamy, uh, which really fits the movie well because the movie takes place through, from all through the night into the early morning till 6 a.m., like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. type of day, or midnight to 6 a.m. So it has that dreamlike vibe. Now, with the sound design, we also have near the beginning of the film this wondrous thunder and lightning that'll almost make you think that you're watching a kind of a horrific film, a horror film at a motel late at night to the desk clerk. We also have a piece of music at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film that kind of has a soft core vibe to it. A woman's voice, a jazzy woman's voice, like you could almost hear in a softcore sexploitation film. And as I said before, that thunder and lightning was so welcomed and so interesting because it really brought so much atmosphere. And you can hear the thunder and the lightning through the beginning frames, beginning sex scene of the film, and it adds this immediate atmosphere that you were not expecting at all. For a film of that you're not expecting at all. I really felt that this was such an interesting X-rated film within the motel subgenre. Kind of a girl who's searching, needing the money, chronicling her work at this late night motel and kind of her late night written chronicles and first person narration throughout the film as well. Stylistically, cinematography wise, we're looking at kind of some lapses in time as sexual positions change just from a cut. One person's on top, the other person's on top. Sexual positions are changing just through cuts. So there is a element of moving through time quickly or a lack of time within the sex scenes themselves. We also have a really, really interesting emphasis, I would say, on raw emotion on the characters' faces during the sex scenes, and I would say very, very high intensity within the sex scenes, notably within the characters' faces and in the characters' acting as well. Where we really have, if I said the music was romantic, we have this passion in the sex scenes that is very high on powerful intensity. And we also have a very interesting element near the end of the film that goes into the character's mind in a level of invisibility. We also have some interesting shots near the last frames of the film involving tongues and very, very close-up shots of tongues connecting and meeting. Um, and very, we have close-up shots of faces, faces being definitely an emphasis here. I also have to say that the acting in this film is really, really great, especially the woman, and I don't know her name, short, blonde-haired woman who was in the film Pretty Peaches as well, who has a kind of a masturbation scene in this film. Very amazing acting. I mean, we're talking about acting that really shatters the stereotypes of X-rated acting, where we have great lines of dialogue in this film and then carrying that acting into the sex scenes as well, which really kind of proves the acting through both worlds of dialogue acting in kind of a traditional sense of movie acting, and also in a sexual sense as well. This is such an interesting film of where we have kind of we're with the hotel clerk, and she's kind of a girl that's going, she's kind of lost, she's in a position that I would almost, kind of compare to, kind of that position of Sofia Coppola's film Lost in Translation, in a way, where she's younger, she's discovering the world, she's trying to make ends meet, and she's writing. There's nothing greater to me than just that kind of that writer late at night in a thunderstorm, but also a writer working, at a motel and chronicling that. You think of, I think of Chevy Chase's, the comedy Funny Farm, um, but I think of kind of that the late night radio DJ vibe, but the late night writer vibe. There's no better, you know, late night um, concept than a writer or a radio DJ. This is a film of characters and situations as well, as we are basically, as she is chronicling within her book, we are chronicling within Purely Physical, this film, the different people, the different characters, the different relationships that are booking rooms at this establishment, at this rather cheaper establishment, this motel. And so we go into each room and see their sex with each other, whether it be two girls, one guy, two guys, one girl, or whether it be entering into the mind of the hotel clerk amidst all of this, and even a connection with a truck driver that she has, who continually revisits the motel weekly. And the sex scenes and the different characters, almost in a way reminding me of the horror film Motel Hell, with the different characters that go to the motel. Um, we have a range of different dramatic situations and sexual situations, even involving something a bit dark in the crime aspect for one of the situations. And I thought there was a really cool, interesting character. One of the guys with a girl that goes to the motel is a movie fanatic, and so he's obsessed with everything related to movies, quotes, actors, actresses, the years of the films. I thought that was a really unique type of concept for one of the characters. The sexual situations span a wide range of areas. The talk is dirty. This one girl says something like "lick my ass" or something, which I thought was pretty wild. And we have a variety of situations. The sex scenes. There's even one with like this young couple involving Jade Wong and this guy, which was actually one of my favorites. Um, and as I said, powerful intensity for the sex scenes in the film. And there's also some awkwardness depending on the characters as well, and some levels of power and control as well. We have some wild ejaculation scenes. We have, like as I said, a masturbation scene. We have lesbian scenes, and there's really and even a fantasy, within a reality as well. This is 1982's Purely Physical by Chris Warfield. He also did Cat House Fever, which is also on this disc that I'll be reviewing shortly in the coming time ahead. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarre YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like Purely Physical from 1982. Please feel free to check out all my other reviews in this YouTube page, from exploitation, sexploitation, adult cinema like this one, horror, underground, surreal, weird, really whatever I feel needs to be talked about more. And also, please feel free to check out my own films by Googling Apartment 1014 Films. And you will encounter the YouTube pages and such. Thank you so much, and have a great night.